Hello, everyone. Welcome to the PwC Tax Bite podcast series. And today we will talk about the just recently published, just an hour ago, published the Fit for 55 package of the European Commission. My name is Pieter de Rey, director in the Brussels team, and I welcome to my virtual studio two people, Jean-Philippe van West, senior expert in European law, and Jean-Philippe is part of the environmental tax group in PwC. And Stefan de Baats, senior counsel, an expert in international tax and transfer pricing. And together with both of you, I would like to explore already a little bit the big package. And I say big because it's lots of pages of documents which have been published by the European Commission today and which all deal with transition to a green economy and delivering the Green Deal, to say it with the words of the Commission. And the ambition is important. So cutting emissions by 55% by 2030 to realize a genuine net zero by 2050. Very ambitious goal. And Jean-Philippe, let me start with a question to you. What has been announced today, and were you surprised by the announcement?
Thank you, Peter, for that question, and hello, everyone. This Fit for 55 package, it's yet again a very important evolution in the area of taxation, but as well beyond that. It's a much broader evolution. This evolution and this package was expected, so the people dealing with this issue were already looking forward to this communication for a long time. It is said to be the biggest legislative package the Commission ever presented, so illustrating as well its importance. What we see is what is in this package. Well, it contains several measures, updating on the one hand existing legislation on energy and climate, together as well with new legislative proposals, but all directed, aiming at enabling the EU, the European Union, to cut greenhouse gases emissions by at least 55% by 2030. What we will see here, there are several aspects several of these initiatives deal with taxes, but as well several of these initiatives are not directly related to taxes. What is important, however, is that everyone, me and you, but as well all companies, will be directly or indirectly impacted by this package because we all consume energy. If you look as well at this package, there is as well a clear link, and then more from a tax perspective, there's a clear link with the communication of the European Commission on business taxation in the 21st century of the 18th of May 2021. And in this package, the European Commission put forward its vision of taxation in the 21st century. And in that document, the Commission made the link with the Fit for 55 package, and it said that the taxes will play a key role in the realization of the Green Deal. And it announced a shift towards more behavioral taxes, such as environmental taxes, and more the introduction or the further continuation of implementing the polluter pays principle. What is important as well, if we look at the Fit for 55 package, that it's only not about taxing, but as well that there is a proposal to create a new fund of which member states can use the revenues of this fund to compensate the cost of this transition to the most vulnerable citizens. Because we all remember from a few years ago the Gilets jaunes manifestations that were in France and other countries, and that the European Commission foresees as well that those that need the most vulnerable citizens will receive support in this transition to a more green economy.
So thank you, Jean-Philippe, for giving us that introduction. And if I recall correctly, initially there was also an announcement that today in addition to this package of Green Deal, also a digital levy would be announced. But if I'm not mistaken, this has been postponed. That's right, eh?
Indeed, correctly, Peter. So this initially it was expected that the European Commission would present its proposal for the introduction of a digital levy as well today. This was first delayed with 1 week. And now, earlier this week, there was a statement that this proposal would be even postponed till the end of October. Why? Because there is a risk or assumed potential risk that this proposal of a digital levy would interfere with the ongoing negotiations of Pillar 1, Pillar 2, and the change of the international tax framework.
Okay, so we'll definitely come back to that at a later stage then when we have news on that. Let's focus today on what has been proposed today. And yeah, the listeners are all very much interested in taxation to a certain extent, Stefan. So let's focus on that part of the proposal. What are the most important proposals from a tax perspective, according to you?
Yeah, thank you, Peter, and thank you, Jean-Philippe. And let me focus on one of the most important pillars in the project here, which is the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, or as we call it, the CBAM, which is also linked to the emission trading system. Now, the Fit for 55 project contains several measures and severe measures for enterprises to tackle climate change and reduce greenhouse gases. It is a very ambitious plan. That's something we can easily say. But in order to make the ambitious goals in the plan, enterprises have to make investments to reduce the greenhouse gases and become carbon neutral. Now, Europe is very severe, has very stringent rules. Other countries may not have such severe rules or such stringent rules. So, what CBAM actually does is assisting in reducing the greenhouse gases by 55% from 1999 levels by 2030. But at the same time, it needs to ensure the competitiveness of the European industry by not jeopardizing it by carbon leakages of other countries. So what the CBAM actually does is creating a level playing field to actually put European industry and non-European industry at the same level. So therefore, it is a key element in the European Green Deal to actually address the risk of these carbon leakages from other countries, for example, from importation into the European market of products such as iron, steel, aluminum, cement, electricity production, fertilizer, and so on. So when these imports from less stringent countries are actually being imported, they may become liable to the CBAM. So in a way, it is a kind of top up to level out the lack, I would say, of, well, let's call it a carbon tax. That's basically what it is. It must be adjusted, of course, to comply with the World Trade Organization rules and other international rules. And already some countries have complained, for example, the US, China, Russia, Turkey, South Africa, some examples that of countries that have complained. There will be a competent authority, the CBAM authority, that will look into the CBAM. For example, giving the authorizations, accrediting certain verifiers to see whether indeed the declarations are correct, the review of the CBAM declarations, the sale, the repurchase, the cancellation of the CBAM certificates. All these will be done by that CBAM authority. We have learned now that it will apply from the 1st of January 2023. So I would say that's almost the day after tomorrow, but there's also a transitional period that is foreseen in the regulation. So this is a bit of the highlights now, which are, I would say, amongst perhaps the most important pillar of the Green Deal of the European Union, Peter. But as I indicated, there's also a link with the Energy Taxation Directive. And perhaps, Jean-Philippe, you know a bit more about that.
Indeed, an important aspect of this, the Fit for 55 package, especially with respect to taxes, is the proposed revision of the Energy Taxation Directive. As you know, we already have a directive since 2003, the Energy Taxation Directive, which sets minimum tax rates for energy products like heating, as well transport fuels and electricity. Of course, the directive dates from 2003, and today we live in a different world. And in several ways, this Energy Taxation Directive of 2003 is outdated and is no longer fit for purpose. To give a few examples, well, on the one hand, the directive, the minimum rates in this directive were never adjusted to inflation. Another issue is that certain more polluting energy resources, such as oil and gas, are taxed less than electricity. And as such, the current version of the Energy Taxation Directive favors more polluting energy resources and actually gives an incentive to use more polluting energy resources. Therefore, this is no longer, this is not desired, and therefore an update is needed of the 2003 version of the directive. What is the idea behind it? Well, the idea is to tax energy products and electricity based on how polluting they are. And in such a way, this would better reflect their environmental impact. Furthermore, some outdated exemptions and reductions that are still in the 2003 version of the directive will be removed. So this is as well an important evolution. The directive, the revision, is foreseen to be implemented in 2023. What, of course, here is important to take into account is that, as we know, revisions of directives in the field of taxation require unanimity. And it remains to be seen whether this unanimity will be reached. Because already in the past, the Commission tried to revise the directive, but without success. However, if the Commission or if member states would agree now on the revision of this Energy Taxation Directive, this will have an important impact. Of course, certain industries more than others. So one can think of the energy sector, the technology sector, which as well is highly relies on energy, as well the transport sector, but as well as all other sectors will be impacted by this industry. And as well, the principle behind this is that the polluter pays. As we know, one way to realize this the shift towards a more green economy is to make to introduce more taxes to shift behavior. But as well, there's of course another way as well, and that is to create incentives to pollute less. And within the EU, incentives are always, if you say incentives, that is always closely linked to the EU state aid rules. And Peter, I think as well, in this area, important developments are ongoing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, Jean-Philippe, and thank you for making that link, because it's an important link you make. Well, of course, today what is on the table are proposals for the Green Deal, but next to that, the Commission is also working on an update of the guideline on state aid for climate, environmental protection, and energy. So for the listeners within Europe, there is a kind of a guideline, call it a framework, within which member states can operate to give incentives and subsidies in relation to environmental protection. The current guideline is outdated. It's doing a good job, but not good enough to realize the Green Deal. And that is why the Commission is working on an update of that guideline, which provides more and new techniques, state aid techniques, so examples of incentives and subsidies that member states could use to stimulate, to give that additional push in the economy to make sure that the transition is realized. And what is in there, for instance, is a broader application of subsidies for green energy, windmills, solar panels, and so on for companies. But equally, a part on taxation. So when member states introduce taxes on the environmental, according to the principle, the polluter pays, like you indicated, well, then these taxes can be reduced for certain businesses that make additional investments and efforts to realize a more green transition. So a lot of information is in that guideline. I'm sure we will talk about that in next editions of this podcast, but it's an interesting link you make because the two go hand in hand, as you rightfully say. Yeah, thank you, Jean-Philippe and Stéphane. So I noted down that this border adjustment mechanism and the energy directive are two very important developments also for the audience here, looking more from a tax angle, I think, to this development. So good to monitor this. We already come to the end of this podcast. So my last question is usually to obtain your takeaways on this development in 1-2 minutes. And Stéphane, I will start with you. What's your takeaway?
Yeah, thanks, Peter. And well, green taxes, I would say their importance is considerably increasing. Traditionally, tax team focused more on corporate income tax, on VAT rules, but in particular now with this Green Deal, the importance of green taxes is really rising. So more attention should indeed be paid to these kind of taxes. We also have the environmental, social, and governance reporting that is increasing, so the contribution to society. So there is, I would say, a larger role indeed to be played by the tax teams, or at least influenced by the tax teams. Also, there is the impact on intercompany pricing. Think about what if you have import of raw materials with or without CBAM? So is it still possible to have comparability, or do we have comparability issues? What about benchmarking? Can we price towards customers? Do we need to revise our pricing? So all these elements are important for also cross-charging of the green taxes. All these elements are important. Also, there is the cost when importing these products, increase in compliance, because of course you need to comply with, for example, the CBAM. So more red tape coming on. So this would be from just on top of my head, from a first inkling, some of the issues that may come onto us. I think, Jean-Philippe, you also have something to say.
Indeed, Stefan, and I will be brief, but my key takeaway is that, well, this Fit for 50, well, everyone, really everyone will be impacted by this Fit for 55 package. And the key takeaway is that you should really map how you will be impacted, how your business will be impacted by all these different initiatives.
Thank you very much for those interesting thoughts and your takeaways on this, Jean-Philippe, Stéphane. We come to the end of the podcast, so I thank you very much for sharing your first thoughts, and I will let you go now so you can read the other hundreds of pages that have been published today. Thank you also to our listeners for tuning in for the first input on this quite important development. I would say subscribe to the podcast on Google, Spotify, Apple, and you will always receive the latest update. And with that, I thank everyone and hope to see you again in the next edition.